Hey everyone, welcome back to our vlog, Anywhere with You. I promised last time that today we're going to have a Q&A session with Owen, and we are. But first, I thought I'd just give you a little update on the procedure from Friday. So, I went in early Friday morning, got changed, and basically right after that, they were ready for me. So it was all very quick. The long part was after the procedure. Because I was under general anesthesia, I had to stay in the clinic for a while before I was checked off as okay to go home. So it was fine. It was a very peaceful, restful afternoon lying in my hospital bed. But what they were doing was they were going to retrieve my eggs. And because of the hormone boosters, my follicles were growing in size. And that's why I had felt so bloated before. And so all of those eggs were coming out. But actually, despite what they thought, they weren't able to collect that many. They collected 5, which, they said it's not a problem. They just expected more. And the 5 that they got looked very healthy. And, I'm young and healthy. So they thought there would be no problems. So we got home Friday, late afternoon. On Saturday, we had to call the biologist at the hospital to tell us how the eggs were developing. And they told us that 4 had successfully been fertilized, 4 of the 5. And so the procedure to implant them will take place on Wednesday at 11. So they have a few days to develop further, and then they will put them back in to increase the chances of success. So this is really the time when I'm feeling more emotional and excited and nervous and kind of wish my mom was here. But we're doing okay. I'm just taking it very easy this weekend and resting a lot because the procedure on Friday was a little bit painful. I did have a little bit of bleeding and I've been having some stomach cramps. But it's not the worst thing. So as long as I just take it easy and take care of my body, should be okay. I am very nervous about the actual procedure on Wednesday because I will be awake for it. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I've been having quite a lot of lower back pain over the last 6 months or so. And doing all these procedures, down there where is my lower back, it is quite tiring and painful. So I just want to be able to relax as much as I can on Wednesday and not be too much of a hindrance for the doctors. Not that that's like the most important thing, but I know it would be better if I could relax my body. So if you're praying for us, please just pray that it would go pretty smoothly, that I would be able to think happy thoughts and get in and out of there quickly and then just take care of myself. So that's it for our updates for now. And now we'll do the question and answer session. How do you feel about doing IVF?
I feel good about doing it. It is challenging, but I think I don't think many people choose to do IVF as their first thing. But I think I feel good that it's a possibility that exists and that it's something worth trying.
Missy takes on most of the physical aspects of IVF. Apart from the obvious, what would you say is your main role during the IVF process?
Well, yeah, as you said, it's quite a physically stressful time for Missy at the moment. So I think it's important in that situation for a partner to be very engaged in the process and very present, and present to be there emotionally, but also just in terms of in practical terms, it's better if Missy can rest as much as possible in between all the different procedures and injections. And so that means, in normal life, when we're not doing IVF, we try and split the cooking. But right now, as an example, I do most of it, or just order a lot of takeaways. The other thing is, and also it's just helping out with things like, for example, in our case, Missy really doesn't like doing injections on herself, and so that's one thing I've tried to be there for her to do the injections, which I don't really enjoy doing either, but probably easier for me to do than her. And so it's just being willing to help with the things that maybe Missy struggles with. And and the other thing is, I think it's good that I can try and be there for appointments, even though I'm not strictly necessary, and sometimes the doctors seem surprised that I've come along. I think just because it's quite a scary time in some ways, or quite an intimidating thing to be going through this process. It's good if I can go with Missy to appointments when possible. And in our particular situation, which probably doesn't apply to many people watching this, but in our particular situation, we live in Germany. Neither of us speak German that well, but I speak German more so than Missy, and so the other role I have is to try and communicate in German with the doctors, or more really with the nurses. The doctors speak English actually, but the nurses and receptionists who don't always speak English, and try and help Missy in that way.
If you were to do IVF again, what would you do differently next time?
I think there are a couple of things that I might try to do differently if it were possible. So one is, and I don't know if this will be possible for me or for another person just because of time available, but actually I feel like I should have taken last week off work. That would have been much easier because I'm trying to help Missy with lots of things, and while at the same time trying to juggle work around was kind of difficult, and then maybe I wasn't there for Missy all the time, or that I was just kind of quite stressed. So where if it were possible, I would probably take more time off work if we were to do it again, and just be focused more. The other thing I think is, again, in our particular situation of being in Germany, I would worry less about finding a clinic where they're used to dealing with people who aren't German. So originally, when we started trying to do the IVF process, we really tried to find a clinic that was kind of used to dealing with foreigners, or was set up for dealing with foreigners. And we went to this clinic in Berlin, and it didn't really work out for various reasons, some to do with COVID. But in any case, looking back, even if we had been able to do IVF there, it would have been very impractical to be going up to Berlin all the time. And even with like the slight difficulties of language, it's just much better to be doing IVF at a clinic near our house. So I think if I was to go back to the beginning, I would say, don't worry about the language thing. Just try and improve my German as much as I can and communicate with them in German, and it'll be fine. And don't worry about whether they're used to dealing with foreigners.
I thought I'd join Owen for this last question because it's something we both have some input on. So the fourth question is, if you had to give advice to a couple that is considering trying IVF, what would you say?
I think probably the one thing I'd say is make sure you both kind of read about it and understand as much as you can about it beforehand, and talk about it carefully and think about it, and be aware, firstly, that it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. It's not just like some quick procedure that you can just have done and then it's done. It's a more challenging thing than that, and therefore you need to kind of both understand each other and both know whether it's what each of you really want to do, and that you'll both be together in it. And so take some time to think about it and learn about it a bit before you dive into it.
Yeah, I think along with that, just make sure you're on the same page as a couple. It's one of those things, IVF tends to invite a lot of negative feelings. people have very strong judgments about it. And so while you're thinking about all the options, you might face a lot of criticism. But if this is something that you have talked about together and really thought through, prayed through, considered the options, and you feel right about it, in your conscience with each other, then that's great. That's where you need to be. If one of you is doubting, but the other one isn't, it's going to be a much harder procedure to go through. And also one thing to think about when you're choosing IVF or researching it is that there's a lot of general information out there, but each clinic will do it slightly differently. And I know for us, some of the procedures for IVF in certain clinics we didn't fully agree with, but the one that we found here we do agree with. And so as a couple we were agreed on that and we felt good about the decision.
Yeah. I think the other thing we'd probably both say is that you should have some close friends or family who you talk to about what you're doing while you're doing it. So you may not want to discuss with everyone that you're doing IVF, and that's fine. But it's good to have at least a few close people who you can talk to while you're doing it, because it is. Otherwise, I think it's quite hard to just face it kind of just the two of you, and if you have a couple of other people who you can be open with during at the time, I think that's a very good thing.
Right. It's not like everybody will choose to do a video blog about it like we have. We're doing this so it's helpful to other people, but we know it's a very private matter. And for us, we have close friends, close family that we share more of the personal details with. Because they're praying for us and they're supporting us. And it is a little scary because they're getting their hopes up with you and you're scared if it's not successful that you'll let them down. But at the end of the day, it's just so much of a relief to have them there and cheering you on the whole way. The other thing I would say about making the decision for IVF is like the end decision. There are years of considering other options, being tested. When you start to realize you can't have children or it's just not happening, you start to look into other things and wonder what's going on with your body. And kind of over the years, I've done a lot of research and learned a lot about the relationship between what I eat and hormone balance and just things like that. Take care of your health early on. Find out what's good for you to eat at which stages of your cycle. Find out what kind of exercises are good for you. Doing an intensive lose weight diet is not actually the best thing for somebody who's trying to become pregnant. But if you are taking care of your body and really in a good place physically, it will help you mentally, emotionally. And then when you finally get to the point of doing IVF, you can go into it with a pretty healthy body, with better chances, and also, they give you all these hormone boosters and extra stuff. You will eventually be done with that. And then you will just have a healthy body that will be able to carry a child, Lord willing. So there are lifestyle options, taking care of your body, taking care of your health. You have anything else to add?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today for this Q&A session, and hope it's been helpful and has given you a bit of insight into Owen's role in all of this. And we will update you again after Wednesday's procedure at the end of the week. Bye.
Bye.